Hi, this is Ricki Spencer and welcome to Quests by Community. And today we're going to cover a really interesting topic. It's all about parenting. But not just about parenting, it's actually about my community especially, trans and gender diverse parenting. And we're going to hear from someone who's written a fabulous book. They are an incredible author, broadcaster, writer, parent, and lover of anything country. Welcome, Jasper.
Thank you so much for having me, Ricki.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. What got you to write this incredible book, You'll Be a Wonderful Parent?
I used to be a marriage celebrant, and I did that for a long time, and then the pandemic came along, and look, I've got compromised immunity, so going to work every weekend at weddings, it was a little bit dicey and a little bit scary. So a friend said to me, you don't have to keep doing this job. And it never occurred to me because I loved it so much. But I thought about what else I might like to do, and I was really interested in writing. I've been writing people's love stories for all that time and then presenting them in a ritual to get them married. I spoke to a friend of mine, Elsa Wild, who's a writer, and she had a manuscript and said, hey, would you read this for me and do a sensitivity read from the perspective of being a gender diverse person? And I read it, and you'll see the book that's out. It's called You'll Be a Wonderful Dad. And I read it and said, oh, it's beautiful, Elsa. It's not really for my community though. Perhaps you could speak to your publisher about then getting someone to write one for us. And they called me and said, would you do it? So that's how it happened. Yeah.
That's incredible. I must admit, just prior to getting the book, I was like in a daze because I thought, oh my God, I've got this book coming. I'm going to have to spend copious hours sitting down taking notes because I wasn't quite sure of the framing. And I was pleasantly surprised when I opened up and thought, I read the first part and I thought, oh my God, this is just incredible. It is so affirming. The language is so accessible.
Yes.
And it was all about from the lived perspective of yourself. It was so. How did you decide to write in that sort of personal experience?
I can't really process a lot of dense text myself because I get brain fog. And I didn't want the book to be inaccessible to anyone. I wanted it to feel like you're sitting down for coffee with a friend who's helping you understand that you can do this. This is something that you can be included in and involved in. I wanted that reaffirming kind of pat on the arm kind of feeling, but in a book form. So I guess I wrote from my own experience, but also because I know that I can't really describe lived experience that I haven't had, I spoke with a lot of other people. I spoke with all the members of the alphabet soup of the LGBTIQA+ community. So any part of that I didn't have experience in, made sure I had a really big chat with someone who is parenting or caregiving under those letters. So all of those stories are expressed in the book. I guess so that, you know how it is when you walk into a bookstore and you're reaching for something that you're not seeing yourself represented. I wanted there to be something for us.
Having that representation, I found that the illustrations that we used were quite relatable. Can you tell us a little bit about the illustrations?
I was really excited to get Quince Francis on board. Quince is a non-binary birthing parent and a dear friend of mine. Actually, I married them and their partner. Yeah, so we've known each other for a few years, and when the publisher asked me about illustrations, I said, what about this person who does the most beautiful, heartfelt artworks? And also I know, like, Quince helped with our children as well when they were little, and we needed a bit of help with babysitters and whatnot. Quince is an incredible nanny. So I knew that the subject matter would be something close to their heart. They've got a little baby at the moment, a beautiful baby, and I knew it would be a cup-filling project for them. So So I guess they worked on it with the publisher after I did all the words. I sort of passed it on to them and said, oh, do you think for this bit you could draw something like this? But mainly it was just going with their instincts, which are spot on.
I can see this book as something you could bring the whole family, sitting down with the kids and talking about their journey within the family. Is this something that you had in mind when you were writing it, that you would be able to have the children sit alongside parents to kind of go through, this is me, this is how I came?
I'll tell you a funny story. When the first copy arrived in the mail for me to have a look at, I was so excited to show my 5-year-old. And do you know what they said to me later at dinner? That book is so boring, Mum.
Oh!
They said, why were there so many words? Which I
love the honesty of it.
I love the honesty. I thought, that is hilarious. But I imagine as they get older, they'll be able to flick through it and see a bit more. But the beauty of, we've got 2 children who are 5 and 3 years of age, and they know that there are lots of families just like theirs. And that there are lots of families not like theirs, and they don't really bat an eyelid at anyone, really. They'll come across anyone, any stage of life, any kind of person, and they'll just accept them where they're at, and celebrate who they are. And I wish everyone could be like that. Like, don't you just wish walking down the street that kind of gaze would meet?
I fell in love with this book because, spending 25 years as a social worker and trying to navigate, how can I support families who are gender diverse? And in my time, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. But I knew there was our community. There was a need for it. And then just looking at it, and the fact that some of the language used is so inclusive. When you talk about feeding the child, and you mention some people refer it to breast or chest. And was that important for you to have that in?
Yes, so important. I think language has such an impact on how we feel. It affects everyone that it lands on. And I know that it evolves so rapidly, particularly in trans and gender diverse spaces. So I did put a note in the front of the book that the language in this edition may become obsolete, and I'm aware of it and I'm working on it. I hope to update this version in years to come. But I know the power of words. I know that when inclusive words are used, just how much that can lift someone up. And it's as simple as giving someone the feeling that they belong in a space. When my partner and I were on our journey to having our children, it took a long time. There's no whoopsie babies. They're very intentionally created, and a lot of the spaces that you go into to get that happening, they're not necessarily keeping everyone in mind, and the language they use reflects that. So it can really sort of surprise you how much of an impact that can have. So I really channeled those feelings of feeling a bit shaken in those instances where I was so surprised. I'd walk out of a birthing class and go, am I allowed to be a parent? I don't know if I belong or if this is okay. I'd never felt that way about my sexuality or my gender before.
I found your book was so honestly raw because you allow all of us to see ourselves in that, whether you are the person who is giving the birth process or the partner along the journey. Was that important that you wanted to kind of put those
the non-birth
parent would be my experience, and how to kind of process that?
We learn through observing, and I hadn't really met many non-birthing parents before who were not the dad. And I thought if I could just write this down, someone might feel less alone, they might feel empowered. They might see their experience reflected in those pages, and know that it's not a scary, tumultuous journey because you're not the only one.
One of the things that really stuck in my mind was the suggestion you made about creating sort of like footprints of memories through song and music for the person to kind of think during the birthing process and then afterwards. So you're really creating a sense of memories, new memories. And I thought that was that something that came from your experience that you wanted to share with everyone?
Oh, Ricki, I've got a long background in community broadcasting, and so I will make a playlist for any occasion. I'll make a playlist for making breakfast, for going to the shops, whatever. So coming up with the birthing playlist was such a emotional undertaking. But those songs are now, they're part of the tapestry of our family, and it's always quite heartwarming if you're just out, you're at the supermarket and you hear one of the songs that was playing when your child was born. You're like, oh, that takes me straight back to that moment and of meeting that beautiful baby. And I wasn't the one giving birth, and my wife talks about, I had no idea what music was playing. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what day it was. But it made a bit of a difference for me, and I can tell my kids about it.
That emotional shared moment where all of you are connected through that experience, and that's what's so beautiful about it. The other thing I wanted to say, what I really loved when I was going through the book, is that you showed a lot of us in different body sizes.
Yes.
And that you were quite clear and you wanted to show people with disabilities. How important was that representation that you wanted to have in this book?
Definitely one of the first things when I was writing up a list of what I wanted to take to the publisher, and because I'm not very good at art or illustration, but I knew that Quince Francis, who's the illustrator, would do a beautiful job. And they're very inclusive anyway. But even just the notion of having listed, it wasn't necessarily a ticker box of having this and this, but it was more, I'd really like to see a broad and diverse range of sizes, heights, ethnicities, abilities, because that's my community, that's who we are.
On so many topics, we have a lot in common. And you were mentioning that you're really passionate about accessibility.
Yes.
And one of the things you're hoping eventually that your book will be available in different formats. Did you want to just sort of elaborate?
I love audiobooks. I find with my energy and imaging disability, sometimes reading text takes a lot more energy for me than I have in a day. But if I can listen to it while I'm taking the dog for a little walk around the block or stacking the dishwasher, it really enriches those moments for me, and I get to connect and be a part of that literature or that artwork that someone's taken the trouble to make. And in the lead up to this book coming out, I've had so many people contact me and say, where's the audio book? Is there going to be an audio book? And so I'm really hoping to get that happening. It's really important to me that it does. Because it's not, people with vision impairment and blindness, audiobooks are great for this part of the community. They're also great for people with literacy issues, they're great for people with energy issues, and some people just like audiobooks. So there's a very broad section of the community that an audiobook would serve.
And I also can see the day when this book will become hopefully translated perhaps into some different languages.
I hope so.
Because our community is diverse culturally and linguistically, and it'd be wonderful. Because I would love to see this your book launched even in overseas spaces. People can feel, identify and connect. Or other people like myself who never had the opportunity to have children. Would you ever consider perhaps in the future, not to put you on the spot, maybe writing or considering the idea of having affirmed grandparents and aunties and uncles who are transgender with intersectional ways of being, to be part of family?
Oh, absolutely. I was actually discussing this with a friend of mine who's also another non-binary working parent, and we think of ourselves as queer siblings. We're not brothers, we're not sisters, but we're just siblings, And they would say, what should my child call you? Like, you're not an auntie, you're not an uncle. I don't know. Sometimes there isn't a word yet. And I don't know if it's something that we should come up with, or even just saying there doesn't need to be a specific word that is definitive. So many of us grow and change every day, and reflecting that means that being limited to auntie, uncle, whatever the title might be, might not work for how those relationships are. But I can definitely see volumes around the different ways that families are formed. There's blood relations, but then there's your chosen family as well. There's so much kinship in the queer community.
Absolutely, especially thinking, being older, and a sense of we still have a purpose that we're older, and that we can offer so much to younger people about our experiences and our journeys and our footprints, so that they have a kind of lens into our diverse queer communities that they normally get exposed to in schools through heteronormative spaces. And I guess that's one of my other hopes, is that, do you hope that we have a huge uptake of this book in schools? Is this one of the things that you're hoping, that we will have these in hospitals and healthcare settings?
I hope so. I'm not very, how do I put this? I'm pretty honest about how I find medical spaces, so I'm not sure how comfortable they'll be having books there, but I hope that they do. When you work with a publisher and you pitch a title to them or a work with them, part of the pitching process is saying who would be interested in having this book. And I thought about maternal child health nurses, birthing suites in hospitals, parent and baby units for after the baby's born if they need help with sleep or mental health, any space, GPs, schools, places where families go. And I would really like this to be accessible to people in all of those spaces, so that they can know that it's there and they can reach for it and feel less alone.
I'm just incredibly excited that I finally found a book that I can read easily, love the imagery because I can see myself in those images. And there's one statement on page 44 I want to read out to everyone, because it was so affirming for me. And I don't know if you remember this, but I'll read it out to you. You can tell me why you chose it. Think of beliefs like shoes. If they're not comfortable and you don't feel good from your head to your toes when wearing them, they're not fit for the path you are following. As soon as I read that, and I think it was like at 2 a.m, I was like, oh my God, why am I so related to that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think all of us in the LGBTIQI+ community, we can relate to walking through the world and having all these beliefs land on us, and they don't fit. And some of us might put up with the discomfort of an external belief and go, oh, well, I might need to change to fit that. But I think finding your place in the world means you walk into that shoe shop and you get the shoe that fits you. It's not about shoving your foot into something that's going to cause you back problems or bunions or whatever it is. If I could really take the analogy that far. But when you have children, or when you're a family, it starts before the baby's born. What are you having? People want to know the sex of the baby, and why does it matter? If you want to tell people, that's great.
Did you find that hard?
Oh, exhausting. Exhausting. I would say to people, we're having a go. And then when they would be like, what are you doing? I was like, well, why do you care? It's a baby, they're going to be beautiful no matter what's going on. And I don't know, I think gender's this thing that people put so much focus on. Can't just let people emerge in their own time.
I really love that idea of emerging in your own time and moving away from this binary notion of, this human life that's coming, why are we so fixated on labelling them with a particular gender that they may not necessarily be affirmed to? So I'm really hoping that this may start changing the narrative, and maybe for people listening out there, you know, who maybe you're an ally, you know, and you have friends, you know, who are gender and trans diverse and they're going to be parents, you know, think about that question and perhaps not, well, think of it, you're having a baby, that's fabulous.
Yes.
Let's stick to that rather than, let's take the gender out of the equation, because that's really not what being a family for me would be. You know, it's that love of the child coming and bringing you as a unit together.
And loving them for who they are.
Yeah.
You know, they might love trucks and they might love dolls, and there's nothing to do with gender, it's just what they're interested in.
Jasper, you do a lot of work, a broadcaster, you're a writer. You also host a really important radio program. Can you tell us a little about it?
I create some content for a show on MainFM, which is a community radio station in Castlemaine called Able Radio. And it's basically anything to do with disability, and the show is completely staffed, produced, presented by disabled people. The content is not always specifically about disability, but it is something that our community might be interested in. So anything that's going on, I want to know about it.
And I think it's important too, and for people listening that might want to pass that information. What is it like in a regional space compared to metropolitan? How did you make that decision for you and your family to choose?
Well, my wife and I, we went on a holiday to Thailand for a month, and we thought, we need to live near the beach. We're beach people. And we came back, we were living in Northcote, in north of Melbourne, and we went, oh, all this traffic, we can't deal with this. And so we couldn't move to a nice beach, we moved to a very swampy beach with a lot of mosquitoes. And we lived there for 2 years, and for the first year, we didn't admit to each other that each of us were really struggling. There weren't any other people like us around. It wasn't necessarily unsafe, but it just didn't feel easy. There wasn't that sense of belonging. And then we house sat for a friend in Castlemaine after their chickens, and we're walking down the street and we both went, that's what we were looking for. So we sold up and moved. And haven't looked back. It's a very inclusive space to rainbow families. And there's a lot of fantastic arts, great coffee, cinema, restaurants, parks. There's lots of families like ours.
What's it like, Jasper, when you and your family go for a walk down to the local shops? Okay, what does that feel like to be in a space that are like-minded people like yourself, having families? What does that feel like?
I didn't know that life could be like this. Looking back to when I was younger, I didn't know that I could feel such belonging and such a love within a community like this. And it's quite overwhelming.
Where to from this?
I've got about 7 different projects just bubbling away.
Wow!
I spend a lot of time sitting beside my children as they go to sleep, and that's a time for those ideas to sort of percolate and bubble up. I've written a second book. I'm not happy to hand it over to my publisher yet, so it's not quite finished, but that's about, it's a memoir about being in the intersections of neurodiverse, disabled, fat, queer, and all of those ways of being.
And it's like me, like a mirror. I'm thinking, oh my God, you're kicking yes. And so many of my friends will be thinking, oh, we can't wait to see ourselves in that.
Well, that's it. I know that there's so many of us who aren't really reflected in a lot of spaces. So I've just written from my perspective what life has been like and what I've learned. So I'm hoping to get that polished up well enough. And I'd like to write a children's book as well about health and about how health is not necessarily a given. It's a privilege. It doesn't mean that we're worthy or deserving of love or not. Some people have the great luck of having an easy time with health, some people don't, and we're all worthy of loving too.
Jasper, it's been an absolute pleasure spending some time with you on Quest by Community. Again, the book is You'll Be a Wonderful Parent. I highly recommend to all of you out there and your parents as gifts to give to people, allies giving the gift to allies as well, so they can understand what families are in terms of being diverse and loving is love. To all you teachers out there, academics, schools, you've got to get this book because it is a conversation starter. It's about love and coming together as a community. Thank you so much for your time, Jasper, for coming on to our show.
So lovely to talk with you, Ricki. Thank you.